Welcome to Beyond the Boss. I'm Neil Van Hart. In part 2 of our series on Backstreets magazine, Christopher Phillips ushers Backstreets into the 21st century.
Our first internet presence was in '95. And at the time, Backstreets.com existed, and it was a porn site. So we couldn't be Backstreets.com, so instead we were AOL.com/members/something else. You know, it was something ugly, but that's the way things were then.
And Backstreets finally lands the boss.
John says, Bruce, come here. This is Chris Phillips from Backstreets. The first thing Bruce said was, oh, Backstreets, yeah, Backstreets. I like Backstreets. You know why? Because sometimes I forget what I'm doing. And whenever I forget what I'm doing, I go look at Backstreets. I say, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing.
In our last episode, we explored the genesis of Backstreets through its founder, Charles R. Cross. Charles passionately nurtured the magazine's growth for nearly 20 years, with Backstreets ultimately becoming recognized as one of the best rock and roll fanzines ever created. By the late 90s, however, Charles reset his career path and set out to write what would become a series of critically acclaimed rock biographies, paving the way for Christopher Phillips to take over Backstreets and pilot the magazine into the digital age. In this episode, we examine the impact of the internet on the magazine, the evolution of Springsteen's relationship with Backstreets, and what Backstreets must do to satisfy the most rabid fans in rock and roll. This is Beyond the Boss, Episode 2. From 1980 through the early 90s, Backstreets was hugely successful in the world of die-hard Springsteen enthusiasts. But in a pre-internet world, finding ways to expand the brand beyond its core audience was difficult. Backstreet's owner and publisher Christopher Phillips explains.
A lot of effort went into going to shows, leaving during the encore in order to go to your car and get the box of magazines or the box of pamphlets to stand outside and start passing them out. When Bruce was playing the grand opening of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I went as the Backstreets emissary and had to leave during the encore of this, great, huge stadium show in order to go get the box of pamphlets, bring it back, stand outside. It was pretty miserable, especially at a show like that where not everybody was a Springsteen fan. And I'm just passing these things out. People are laughing at me. People are throwing them on the ground. And you turn around and see 90% of what you've just handed out is littering the asphalt. It wasn't fun, but it had to be done. That's how you spread the word. There wasn't a good way to get the word out until the internet. So the internet, while it's really changed the face of a lot of what we do, has also been hugely important to people being able to find us.
Before the World Wide Web, it was more difficult for music fans to share their passions. You might have a friend locally who cares about an artist the way you do, but there were precious few outlets for that enthusiasm. Backstreets magazine helped bridge that gap for Springsteen fans. Many readers were pen pals, traded bootlegs via cassettes, and held communion at concerts. But beyond that, regular contact was still limited. It became apparent in the early days of the internet, however, that Backstreets.com could become the central hub of everything the Springsteen community needed and wanted. Early adopters of the web, however, faced unique challenges.
Our first internet presence was in '95. And at the time, Backstreets.com existed, and it was a porn site. So we couldn't be Backstreets.com, so instead it was something ugly. AOL.com/members/something else. But that's the way things were then. The website wasn't much, but it was someplace where we could put the tour itinerary with links to the venues. And that was a fun little project to do, and you could sort of start to see, this could be a valuable thing. Because at the time, with Backstreets coming out every 3 months, every 4 months, sometimes every 5 months, there was no good way to spread breaking news. So when I took over the business in '98, I had to do a lot of thinking at that point about where's this going to go? Where am I going to take this? I decided that the internet was going to have to be where we concentrated a lot of energy.
Fortunately for Chris, Backstreets.com, the porn site, lived a brief existence, paving the way for Backstreets.com, the Springsteen site, to begin revolutionizing the way the company functioned. Most notably, everyday fans were able to reach out and contribute to the magazine's content in ways that were unprecedented.
Backstreets at its best is sort of a forum. It's a community forum. So many of the writers that we have writing for us They're fans. They're people who I met at a show or happen to email me and say, hey, I've got this idea for an article. It's always still a fan forum because it's fans who are contributing, it's fans who are putting it together, it's fans who are reading it. And I think there's a big give and take, whether it's in the letters section or whether it's in a new writer that I just discovered because we happen to be chatting in the pit at a Springsteen show. Our stable has grown in a really organic way. There are a number of people who've been contributing to Backstreets for nearly 30 years. They were friends of Charlie's at the time, now they're friends of mine, and so there was kind of a Backstreets family.
Sundown, sundown, fatiguing all attendance down. Where have you gone, my handsome Billy?
When Danny Federici died, I was struggling with how to write about it. And I got an email out of the blue from one of our readers, and he wrote what I thought was a beautiful piece about Danny's organ playing and the sound of it and what he meant to fans. And that was not solicited. That was not someone who had written for us before, but it came to me at the right time, and I read it and I loved it. I said, hey, can we run this in the magazine? And he said, yeah, I'd love it. And he recently just sent me another pitch. And that's how a lot of these things happen.
In 1999, Springsteen reunited the E Street Band and hit the road for the first time in 10 years. The so-called reunion tour quickly skyrocketed Springsteen and the band back into the public conscience, and also cemented Backstreets.com as the place for Springsteen news and information. The added attention created a critical crossroads for Backstreets.
Part of the challenge of the internet and the effect that it's had on the magazine is that it's forced me to sort of really think about the difference between the magazine and the website. The internet is not always a force for good. It's really taken a lot of my time away from the magazine, and I'm not happy about it. The magazine it's where my love is. It kind of kills me that so much time is taken up with the internet, whether that's email or whether that's maintaining the website. It's been a huge challenge because the website has to be there to let people know we're here and to serve fans who have come to count on it. My dad bitches at me if I haven't updated the latest news about something. My dad's a huge Springsteen fan now, and he's counting on the website to let him know about ticket sales. The internet is a hungry beast, and the website is a hungry beast, and I have to keep feeding it. So my biggest challenge now is to figure out how to keep doing that and still get this magazine out, because the magazine is the thing that I want to be doing. The magazine is the thing that really gives me the most satisfaction.
Approaching its then 25-year anniversary, the magazine had evolved from a 4-page black and white newsprint paper to a full-color, sometimes 100-plus page magazine that had tens of thousands of subscribers and a thriving internet community and presence. Backstreets had everything it had ever wanted, except the holy grail of this particular fanzine, a Springsteen interview. Although hard to believe in its quarter-century of existence, a one-on-one Springsteen interview had never graced its pages. Backstreets had interviewed virtually everyone else within the Springsteen realm, so why not the boss himself? While the exact reason is not quite known, in the early days of Backstreets, Charles R. Cross discovered the hard way that sometimes speaking your truth had its consequences.
The organization was initially cooperative, did things like gave me passes and tickets to some early shows during the Born in the USA tour. But then when I began to criticize the remix of Dancing in the Dark and those things, that access was quickly withdrawn. I was considered a pariah. Here I was running this fanzine, greatly advocating this man's music, but the organization did very, very little to help.